So we're go ahead and circle. If you notice here, I did go ahead and this one is going to be 30 degrees. So it's going up by increments of 30 degrees. And then if you notice, I put them all in blue. And so the reason that I put these two in blue is our reference angle here are both 30 degrees. Okay, and if you notice down here, our reference angle would also be 30 degrees. And then this bottom section over here is also 30 degrees. Okay, remember the little A, the little fish-like symbol is how we represent our reference angle. So they all have the same angle there, which is why they are all in the same color. Okay, 30, 150, 210, and 330. And then if we look at the coordinates, if you notice our coordinate here is the square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. And then it has the exact same coordinate. The exact same numbers, the only thing that changes is that it is negative, and that is because in the second quadrant, your x values are negative. Okay. We look down here, the exact same numbers in the exact same order, except both of them are negative because in the third quadrant, both of our x and our y values are negative. And then last, in our fourth quadrant, the square root of 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. Okay. Now, our 60-degree angle, okay, these ones all have a reference angle of 60 degrees. Remember, your reference angle is the shortest distance from the x-axis to the terminal side. And so if you notice they're the exact same angle, they're both 60 degrees. So you will notice on our unit circle that they're the exact same numbers, and the only thing that changes is the signs. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out how do we get to those numbers. So that's what I'm going to show you here. That way, when I tell you you have to memorize it for calculus class, you know how to get it. You don't have to memorize exactly what the numbers are, but if you know how to get there, it makes it so much easier. Okay, so it comes from our 30, 60, 90 triangle. So the side across our 30-degree angle, we're going to call S. The one across our 60, we're going to call 30. S in the square root of 3, sorry. And then the one across the 90 is 2 times S. Okay. When we take that triangle and we put it on the coordinate plane, we put it on the unit circle. This is 30 degrees, so that means this side is S. This is S times the square root of 3. And this is 2 times S. So 2 times S. I didn't want to write. Of course. Okay, there it goes. So we know that our radius is equal to 1. So that means 2S is equal to 1. So if 2S is equal to 1, we divide by 2. And that means S is equal to 1/2. Okay, so that means that this is equal to 1/2. And this is my y value. That's how high it goes. So this is 1/2. And then this section here is S times the square root of 3. Well, we already know S is equal to 1/2. So it's 1/2 times the square root of 3, which ends up being the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, so that's how we came to these numbers that we have here on our unit circle. So if we look here, that's how we got these numbers here, okay? And now I'm going to go ahead and find the sine, the cosine, tangent, and its reciprocal functions of 30 degrees. I'm going to write my coordinate right here. Now remember, my cosine is my x value, my cosine, and our x value we said was the square root of 3 over 2. Square root of 3 over 2. My sine is my y value. So in this case, my y value here is 1/2. Okay, so we're a step ahead already. Sine of 30 degrees is 1/2 because my y value here is 1/2. To get cosecant, we have to flip it around. So 2 divided by 1 just gives us 2. That one's pretty simple. Now for cosine, cosine of 30 degrees. So cosine is our x value. So our x value we know is the square root of 3 over 2. For secant, we have to flip that around. So 2 over the square root of 3. Okay. But remember, we cannot have a square root on the bottom, so we have to do something that's called rationalizing. We do so by multiplying the top and the bottom by the square root of 3. Once we rationalize, the top becomes 2 and the square root of 3. And then on the bottom, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is just 3. Okay, so that's the solution for secant of 30. All right, the next one, tangent of 30. So remember, for tangent, you have to take your y value and divide it by your x value. So we know that our y value is 1/2. So 1/2 divided by, and on the bottom, we're going to have to divide the square root of 3 over 2. So that's what my y value is. Now, when you're dividing fractions, this is a long time ago when you guys divided fractions. So I'm going to remind you guys how. You multiply the outside one. So you multiply 1 times 2. And that gives us 2. That's what goes on top. Divided by. And then you multiply the inside one. So 2 times the square root of 3. Okay, so then what happens here? You have a 2 on top and a 2 on bottom. They cancel each other out. And we're going to be left with, since there's nothing left on the top, we have to put a 1 there. So it's 1 divided by the square root of 3, but the same thing happens again. We cannot have a square root on the bottom. Okay, so before I rationalize it, I'm going to flip it real quick for my cotangent. If I flip 1 divided by the square root of 3, it becomes the square root of 3 over 1. And then the square root of 3 over 1 is just the square root of 3. Okay? And the reason I did this is so we don't have to rationalize all over again. Square root of 3. Oh, I think this is running out of battery. Okay. So back to rationalizing this one, we have to multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 3. And so on the top, we're going to get the square root of 3. And the bottom, when you multiply the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, we're just left with 3. Okay, so that's the tangent for that. All right, now for the 60 degrees. So these two triangles are exactly the same, but it's kind of flipped and rotated a little bit different, but it's still the same concept. So the one across our 60-degree angle is the square root of 3 over 2. The one across the 30-degree angle we said was 1/2. Okay, and the 1/2 happens to be our x value this time. Our y value now is the square root of 3 over 2, because from here to here is your x, this is our y value. This is x, this is y. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that here, 1/2. This is the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, these are both positive because we're in the first quadrant. All right, so sine of 60, remember sine is your y value. So our sine is the square root of 3 over 2. And then our cosecant is the reciprocal. So we're going to have to flip that around. 2 over the square root of 3. We're going to have to rationalize that. I'm going to skip a few steps because we already did this and I don't want to get repetitive. But it becomes 2 in the square root of 3 over 3. Okay, we've got to get rid of the square root on the bottom. Right? For cosine, remember cosine is our x value. So our x value here is 1/2. If we flip 1/2, that becomes 2 over 1, which is equal to this 2. Right, now tangent of 60 degrees. So at 60 degrees tangent, we're going to take our y value, remember, and divide it by our x value. So in this case, my y value is the square root of 3 over 2, and we are going to divide it by my y value, my x value, which is 1/2. And then we are going to do the same thing. We're going to multiply the outside ones, which is the square root of 3 times 2, which just gives you 2 in the square root of 3. And then we multiply the inside one. So 2 times 1 just gives us 2. So what happens here, you have a 2 on the top and the 2 on the bottom. They cancel each other out, and we're just left with the square root of 3. Okay, now for cotangent of 60 degrees. So cotangent, we're going to have to take the square root of 3, what we got from here, and we have to flip it around. So it becomes 1 divided by the square root of 3. And remember, we can't have a square root on the bottom, so we're going to have to rationalize it. And that becomes the square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and try some of the problems. This is what it's going to look like when you guys take the quiz. So it says, find the exact value of each expression. Leave your answer in simplest radical form when applicable. So we have secant of 210 degrees. You need to remember that secant is the opposite of cosine. If you don't remember, you can look up here on your notes. Let's see. We have it up here. Secant is 1 divided by x. That's what I'm going to do. Secant is 1 divided by our x value. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go up. I'm going to, oh, I forgot to look at the angle. It's 210 degrees. So we find 210 degrees. Here is 210 degrees. And so we're going to look at our x value. My x value is a negative square root of 3 over 2. So on here, we are going to do 1 divided by the negative square root of 3 over 2. So when you do 1 divided by the negative square root of 3 over 2, because it's a reciprocal, all you have to do is flip it around. So it becomes negative 2 over the square root of 3. And then we have to rationalize it, meaning we have to multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 3. And we end up with negative 2 and the square root of 3 over 3. All right, next is sine of 270. So we need to remember that sine is our y value. Okay, so we look up 270 degrees. Okay, so here's 270 degrees. Okay, sine is our y value. Our y value is negative 1. That one we don't have to. Whenever we have sine and cosine, we have no work to do. We just need to look it up on our unit circle. It gave us negative 1. Okay, this one's secant of 30 degrees. So that means we're going to have to do a little bit of work. We're going to have to take the reciprocal. We have to take 1 and divide it by 4. Okay, so we're going to look up 30 degrees. Here's 30 degrees. We look up our y value. It is 1/2. So when we do this, we're going to take 1 divided by 1/2. So when you do that, all you have to do is take 1/2 and flip it around, and it becomes 2 over 1. 2 divided by 1 gives you 2. All right, the next one is sine of negative 90 degrees. So remember, sine is our y value. And so because sine is our y value, that's all we have to look up. Now, negative 90 degrees, remember, if you go negative 90 degrees, that means we're going to go into the opposite direction. So we can't go counterclockwise. We have to go to clockwise direction because it's a negative angle. So since we go here, we look at our sine. Our sine here is negative 1, okay, because it's our y value. So we go ahead and go down. Sine, remember with these, you just need to look it up. Sine and cosine, you just have to look up. No work. Okay, cotangent. Cotangent is your x value divided by your y value. And it is negative 270 degrees. So we look it up. Okay, here, we're going to go backwards. This way. Okay, negative 270 would end up here. And then I already forgot what we were looking for. What? Cotangent. So we need our x and our y value, both of them. So our x value is 0 and our y value is 1. So when I put this down, my x value is 0 and my y value is 1. So we need to remember 0 divided by 1 gave us 0. Now last, we're looking up the sine of pi over 6. So we need to remember sine is our y value. And we're going to look up pi over 6. So we look at our unit circle. Here it is. We look for pi over 6. I found it right here. Our y value is 1/2. So we go back, and here it is 1/2. And that's it. So if you have any questions, go ahead and leave it in the comments. If you guys want to go ahead and shoot us an email, we can also video chat so I can help you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.